I need to say something before I start, and I need you to take it seriously. I am not telling this story for views. I'm not telling it because it's a good story, even though it is. I'm telling it because for 3 years I told no one. Not my girlfriend, not my brother, not the one friend I have who works in cybersecurity and would have actually understood what happened. I told no one because I was ashamed, and because I was scared, and because some part of me believed that talking about it would somehow reconnect a wire I'd spent 3 years trying to cut. But I can't carry it anymore. So here it is. It started the way most stupid things start, with boredom and a sense that the rules didn't apply to me. I was 24. I just moved into my first solo apartment, a 1-bedroom in a mid-sized city I'll keep vague for reasons that will become obvious. I was working remotely, tech-adjacent work, which meant I spent most of my day on a computer and most of my evenings on the same computer doing nothing in particular. I was the kind of person who knew enough about how the internet worked to feel confident, and not quite enough to understand what that confidence was worth. In hindsight, that's the most dangerous kind of person to be. I'd read about the dark web the way most people have. Reddit threads, YouTube videos, the usual mythology. Red rooms, hitman services, black markets. I believed maybe 30% of it was real, and the rest was urban legend. And I was curious about which 30%. I downloaded Tor on a Tuesday night, with nowhere to be, and told myself I'd just look around. For about a week, I did just look around. I want to be honest about this. Most of what I found was boring. Forums. Marketplaces that looked like eBay from 2003. Political content. Whistleblower archives. 90% of it was either mundane or the kind of thing that made me feel quietly worse about the world without being dramatic about it. Then I found the link. I won't tell you where I found it or what it looked like. That's not me being coy. I genuinely think some information is better left out, and that's one piece of it. What I'll say is that it appeared in a forum thread that had been mostly dead for months, posted by an account with no history, and it was just a string of characters with no description attached. I clicked it. The page that loaded was black, with a white text chat interface on one side and a video feed on the other. The video was live. I could tell because there was a timestamp running in the corner, and it matched my system clock to the second. In the video was a room, concrete walls, a single overhead light, the kind of light that makes everything look slightly yellow. In the center of the room was a chair. In the chair was a person. And standing behind the chair was someone in a mask. A plain white mask, the kind you'd buy at a craft store. No costume, just jeans and a dark jacket, and this flat white mask, completely still. The chat on the left side of the screen was moving. A dozen usernames, random strings of letters and numbers, typing things I won't repeat. Instructions, requests, numbers that I realized after a moment were bids. I understood what I was looking at. I want to tell you, I closed it immediately. I want to tell you, I had no hesitation. The truth is, I sat there for approximately 30 seconds, frozen. Not watching, not participating. Just frozen in the way you freeze when your brain is receiving information it doesn't have a category for. 30 seconds is not a long time, and it is also a very long time. Then I closed it, and then I did the thing I should not have done. I typed into the chat before I closed it. 3 seconds, 1 sentence. I said I was reporting this to the authorities and that I had already screenshotted the stream link. I hit enter. I closed the browser. I closed Tor. I shut down my laptop. I sat in my dark apartment and thought about what I'd just done. I had not screenshotted the link. I had no real evidence. I didn't know which authorities to even contact or how to do it anonymously. I had made a threat with nothing behind it, on a platform specifically designed to be untraceable, against people who had demonstrated in approximately 90 seconds that they were comfortable doing things I couldn't fully process. I told myself it didn't matter. They had no way to trace me. That was the whole point of Tor. Anonymity, both ways. I had come in through a secure browser, left no login, given no personal information. I was a random string of characters in a chat log that probably recycled itself every hour. I went to bed. At 2:17 in the morning, my laptop, which was closed and across the room, made a sound. The startup chime. The screen opened on its own. I watched it from my bed. It ran through startup normally, reached the desktop, and then a text file opened, automatically. No program I'd set to open on startup, no scheduled task. A blank text file, opened by something. Then, one letter at a time, as if being typed by invisible hands, a sentence appeared. It was my full name, first, middle, last. Then below it, my address. Then below that, the name of the company I worked for. Then it stopped. The cursor blinked at the end of the line for a long time. Then the file closed itself and the laptop shut down. I didn't sleep. By morning, I had convinced myself it was a script, something that had been installed when I loaded the page. A cookie, a tracker, some piece of code that had crawled through my browser and found what it needed. Scary, but explicable. I was traceable, but I'd threatened them first. And maybe this was just a warning. Maybe they wanted me to know they could find me and be satisfied with that. I factory reset my laptop. I changed every password I had. I bought a VPN, which I now know is more of a comfort than a solution, but which felt like action. And action felt better than nothing. For 4 days, nothing happened. On the 5th day, I got a call from my mother. She lived about 2 hours away in the small town where I'd grown up. She called me in the middle of the afternoon, which wasn't unusual. What was unusual was that she sounded strange. Not scared exactly, but careful. The way people sound when they're trying not to alarm you. She asked if I'd sent her anything recently. A letter maybe. Or a package. I said no. She said a card had arrived at the house. No stamp, no return address, just sitting in the mailbox. Inside was a photograph. It was a photograph of me, taken from outside my apartment window. I was sitting at my desk, at my laptop, and the angle was from the street below, which meant someone had been standing outside my building, looking up, with a long lens or a good zoom at a specific moment in time. The photograph had a date and time printed in the corner. Small, neat, like a timestamp. It was the night I'd been on that site. 11:47 p.m. 11 minutes before I typed that message. They had been watching my apartment before I made the threat. I went to the police. I want to be clear about this because I think it's important. I went to the police. I told the detective, or someone who said he was a detective, as much as I could without incriminating myself for whatever accessing that site might constitute. I showed him the photograph my mother had sent me, which I'd driven to pick up in person. He wrote things down. He was polite. He told me that without more concrete evidence of a threat, there wasn't much they could do, but that I should document everything and come back if anything escalated. 2 days later, my work email was compromised. Not hacked in a dramatic sense, just accessed. Someone logged in, read several months of correspondence and logged out. The IT department found the access in the logs and flagged it. They asked if I'd logged in from an unusual location. The login had originated from a server in a country I'd never been to. My password had been changed 2 weeks before and was 16 characters with no personal information. It didn't matter. Over the following 2 months, things happened. Small things, but consistent. My car, parked in the same spot outside my building every night, started being moved, not far, 6 inches, a foot. Enough that I'd notice, parked in a slightly different position than I'd left it. No sign of damage or forced entry. I changed where I parked. It kept happening. My sister, who lived in a different city and whom I hadn't mentioned to anyone, started receiving calls from a blocked number. Every night, around midnight. No one spoke on the other end, just breathing, then a click. I found a note under my apartment door, folded once, 3 words, "We see you," no other content. I installed cameras. I started varying my schedule, leaving at different times, taking different routes. I stopped using my real name on anything I didn't legally have to. I became, over about 6 weeks, a person I didn't recognize. Careful in a way that looked, from the outside, like paranoia. Maybe it was paranoia. I still ask myself that sometimes. The last thing that happened was the one that made me leave. I'd been at my apartment for 3 months since the site. It was a Sunday. I was making coffee in the morning, and I looked out my kitchen window, ground floor, facing a narrow side alley. And there was a man standing in the alley. He wasn't doing anything, just standing. He was wearing a white mask, a plain white mask, the craft store kind. He didn't move for the 30 seconds I stood at the window looking at him. Then he turned and walked away. I was out of that apartment within a week. I stayed with a friend for 2 weeks while I found a new place, gave no forwarding address, updated only my bank and employer, and legally required contacts. I got a new phone number. I opened new email accounts. I became, as much as a person legally can, someone who had quietly ceased to exist at the address they used to live at. The calls to my sister stopped. The notes stopped. Nothing followed me to the new address. Or if it did, it was subtle enough that I couldn't detect it. Slowly, over about a year, I started to feel like myself again. I haven't been back on the dark web. I won't go back. Not because I'm scared, or not only because I'm scared, but because I understand something now that I didn't understand at 24, which is that anonymity is not the same as safety, and curiosity is not the same as immunity, and there are places you can go on the internet where the danger is not theoretical, not mythology, not the exaggerated product of Reddit threads. There are places where real people sit behind real screens, making real decisions about what to do with your information, where the fact that you think you're invisible is information they've already accounted for, where the gap between watching and being found is smaller than the width of a chat message typed in 3 seconds without thinking. I don't know who they were. I don't know if what I saw that night was real or staged or something else entirely. I don't know if the man in the white mask in my alley was a threat or a message or a coincidence I've assembled into something coherent, because the human brain is very good at patterns, including ones that aren't there. Here's what I know. Someone, somewhere, typed my name onto my screen in the middle of the night. Someone photographed me through my window before I gave them any reason to. Someone stood in a plain white mask in my alley on a Sunday morning and then walked away. I know those things happened. I decided that was enough to know. I want to close with something practical, because I think that's more useful than drama. If you use Tor, understand that the browser is only as secure as the device running it, and a device can be compromised before you open the browser. If you access something that feels genuinely dangerous, do not engage. Do not threaten. Do not type anything that lets them know you were there. Leave. Factory reset. Assume the worst and act accordingly. And if someone knows your name before you've told them, leave faster than I did.